Hey folks, I know we've got everybody joining and rolling in right now. We're excited to have you. And I'd also ask everybody to drop in the chat, where are you joining us from tonight? I'll give it away right now. I'm streaming live from Boston area, Massachusetts. Awesome. We've got a big group this evening, a bunch of people joining us. We can make sure sound is working. Get yourself comfortable, settled in with your folks, with your family. Awesome. I'm going to give it just another few seconds as we've got a few people rolling in here. We are coast to coast covered tonight, north and south covered tonight too. That's awesome. All right, I think it's time for us to get started. I get carried away with the Ed Sheeran, sometimes playing a little Barcelona, getting us in the mood to talk about some travel and international gap experiences. So here's our game plan for tonight. I first just want to introduce myself. My name's Kyle. I work on our Gap Year team here in Cambridge, Mass. This is the virtual background of the EF headquarters in Cambridge. It's the lobby of our building. So I'm going to start off this evening. I'm going to give everyone a little bit of background on what is EF Gap Year. So you'll learn more about our organization, EF. We'll talk a bit about our programs and really try to keep that fairly light, because tonight is really all about hearing from folks that have experienced this firsthand for themselves. So we have some amazing volunteers. We've got a few student alumni. They're going to be joining us. We also have a few student alumni's parents, so they can offer the parental perspective as well as the student perspective. We're going to spend a good chunk of our time hearing from them, and then we'll also have a chance to answer questions that you all are sharing with us, and we're going to weave that into the conversation this evening. So if you do have questions along the way, Lauren, my colleague, and I are going to keep an eye on the chat. You'll meet her in just a few minutes. And hopefully we're all here to have a lot of fun. We appreciate your time. So let's do this. Let's get into this. I think last bit of housekeeping, just so everyone knows and everyone's clear, that just by attending this evening, if anyone does end up enrolling on a Gap Year program, you will receive $500 off. And that's something that you will discuss with your Gap Year consultant. If you have not met or connected with your Gap Year consultant yet, you will by tomorrow. You'll hear from our team and we'll help take care of all of that with you. All right, so let's start. Let's do a background on who are we as EF, education first. I think the most easy, the simplest way probably to put it is that we are the world leader in educational travel. So since 1965, so that's almost 60 years at this point, we've literally helped millions of people travel, see new places, experience new languages, new cultures, and discover new things about themselves and the world, and themselves in the world. So I think you all can probably imagine that, our experience, our expertise in running these programs has really put us in the position to be a pretty unique partner when it comes to gap programming specifically. And it's something that our team is incredibly passionate about. And it's also given us the experience to put together programs that are relevant in today's world, in our COVID world, in our educational landscape, and really just the fast nature of how the world is changing as a whole. So we'll have an opportunity to talk more with your Gap Year consultant later about EF, but I think the last piece is you may know us from being a partner with high schools or even middle schools or colleges. We partner with thousands of schools across the US where we work with students and faculty and administrators to design their experiential programs and their travel programs internationally. And we also have I would say, the fortune to really call ourselves globally local. So amongst myself, my colleagues, we're an organization of a little over 50,000 employees worldwide. We have offices and schools and staff in over 110 countries. So it really is exciting to know that when we have students, especially on our Gap Year program, they are traveling to places where my colleagues sit and work, and where we can pick up the phone and be able to talk to them and sort out usually travel related logistics and arrangements and anything that may come up along the way. We also would argue that this really puts us at a unique intersection between education and exploration. And we believe that you can really become happy and fulfilled and successful, and that looks different than maybe it has in decades in the past. So more and more ever, we believe that real change, real growth, and real learning can happen anywhere and not just in the classroom. So I think the easiest way to understand the foundation from our programs is through our educational philosophy, which we call G2PA. It really is centered around four main pillars. And this is the root of how we've designed all of our programs and what we want our students to be able to experience and gain through any EF gap year program, whether it's a month long, a semester long, or a year long. So the first thing is we want students to be able to actively be developing a growth mindset, traveling, meeting new people, experiencing new cultures, developing empathy along the way helps you to achieve that on a daily basis. The second is the piece of global perspective, right? We are getting you out of your comfort zone. We're putting you with new people. We're challenging you in different situations and getting the chance to have a whole lot of fun and see some really unique places along the way with that global perspective. The third is helping to develop personally. This is where you're going to walk away with confidence, independence, a better understanding of yourself, your values, what's important to you. And the whole idea is that these first growth mindset, global perspective, personal development sets you up to be able to then transition into college, a career, and really the rest of your life, ready to take action and have impact in whatever you see fit, whatever your passions are, whatever your interests are. And you'll walk away having a better sense of what those passions and interests look like. We would sum this up saying that our programs really are designed to help students thrive in an ever-changing world. This is sort of our rallying cry. This is what we always like to revert back to. And you're going to hear a few different experiences tonight, but if you're someone that's still considering or just wanted to know what are the programs that EF actually runs, there's really three different categories that we offer. We have our short-term programs, 4 to 6 weeks in length. You'll hear a bit about some of our semester programs, as well as our full gap year. And when we're talking about these, of course, we're your partner in planning this. So we're taking care of all of your flights, your transportation, accommodations, majority of your meals, activities, excursions, pre-departure support, and 24/7 on-program emergency support. All right, so last slide here before we get into all the good stuff and hear from these awesome folks that we have joining us. So no matter what you are thinking, these programs really are built to be a gateway to success, whatever that looks like to you. And there are a lot of misconceptions that gap years can take you off track, or that they might even be a sign that you are off track. And I really hope that everyone tonight can just hear from our panelists and also think about how this is really designed to be actually the exact opposite. This is designed to give you experiences that can't happen and won't happen in a traditional classroom setting, but will help you to really grow in those areas I mentioned and be more prepared, be more ready to succeed in the classroom, to succeed in a professional setting, or to succeed in any area of life that you are excited about and want to pursue in the future and have a whole lot of fun while you're doing it. So without further ado, let's wrap this up. I'm going to invite everybody to turn their cameras on, and I'm going to kick it to my colleague, Lauren, who's going to take care of our next introductions here.
Hello, everyone. My name is Lauren, and I'm one of those gap year consultants that Kyle was just chatting about. Most of the time, I am the person that is answering your questions as you're starting to think about gap year and navigating those different options and kind of help getting the planning process in place. But tonight, I'm turning the tables a little bit, and I'm actually going to be asking a few of our student and parent alumni some questions to help highlight their awesome, unique stories. And I'm going to invite our panelists to introduce themselves, where you're from, what program you or your student did, and a highlight that either you had or that your student had.
Okay, so my name is Mary Goggin, and I did EF gap year with 2021 and 2022. And my modules were I did the language in Barcelona, and then service in the Dominican Republic, and internship in Sevilla, Spain. And I have two highlights. Mine was monitoring the manatees that were released from captivity in the Dominican Republic, and then hiking in the Amazon rainforest. Both were amazing. Oh, and I'm from Georgia.
I'm Missy. I'm from Delaware, and I did the spring semester gap. So I did a module of service in Costa Rica and an internship in Malaga, Spain. And I think my highlight would have to be being able to travel every weekend. We got to see a bunch of different parts of Spain every weekend, and it was just like a cheap train ticket or bus ride away, and that was just like my highlight.
My name is Juan
Hi.
Acevedo.
Okay.
Go
ahead.
I don't know if there's any order that you want us to proceed in, actually. Can you hear me?
I think you're good, Juan. Take the stage. We're ready for you.
My name is Juan Acevedo. Our daughter Camille Acevedo is the person that did the gap year program. She did the 4-year program, or the long program, as you call it. She started in Paris doing language, learning French. Then she went to Costa Rica to do environmental work. Then followed that by going to Ecuador, the Galapagos Islands. And then the final portion of her trip was in Sevilla, Spain, doing an internship with a computer company that ended up being right up her alley. I would say the highlights of her trip were the Galapagos Islands, working with all the wildlife there, as well as Costa Rica, working with the community and doing service work, which was very enlightening to her. And then last but not least, the internship in Sevilla really motivated her to continue her studies in computers. Our highlight of the trip, of her entire trip, was missing the heck out of her, but being able to join her in Sevilla, Spain for her last portion. And it was an incredible experience where we met some of her cohorts and were able to take them out to dinner and really get to know them and realize what a great experience it was for them.
Hi, my name is Jill Singer. I'm from Seabright, New Jersey at this time. We moved just before Jared left on his trip. My son, Jared Singer, attended, he did the full year program. He did his language in Nice, France, then his community service in Costa Rica, and his internship in Sevilla, Spain. I don't want to speak for Jared in terms of the highlights for him, but I will say that he's made incredible friendships with people. He's already traveled to see them. They've been here. We've got more people coming to visit next month. So I think he's formed some really great bonds with the people that he traveled with. And some of them were not in the same program, right? They were in the full year program, but they were not in the same modules in the same countries. And so it was pretty terrific that they could travel back and forth and see each other in the different countries that they were in. So I think that was a highlight for him. And also just traveling. Jared's a lover of travel. And so I think that was, highlight. And for my husband and I, we traveled to Nice to visit him, and he enjoyed living very close to the ocean, and speaking French because he had taken, he's been taking French for so many years. And we also traveled to Sevilla, Spain to visit him. So that was really, really great. So I guess that wraps it up.
That's perfect.
You were there. I think you were there 1 week right before us, if I remember right.
Oh, it could be. Yeah, we just did a quick in and out, but yeah.
For all of our attendees tonight, all of our student and parent alumni were all on programs during the 2021-2022 academic year. So they are fresh off the experience and they have amazing stories to tell. And for some of those questions that you want Kyle and I to ask our panelists, you'll notice either at the bottom or at the top of your screen, there will be a Q&A box. But to get some of those questions rolling, I'd actually love to have both Mary and Missy kind of highlight where they were when deciding to do a gap, because you guys have both two very different stories and kind of where you were in your academic journey. So Missy, I'm going to pass it over to you to kick us off. Tell us where you were. You were already in college. What made you want to take a gap, and What was that emotional roller coaster like as you started thinking about doing this during college?
Yeah, of course. So I was a sophomore in college, and the college I was at just wasn't the right fit for me. And I was terrified to transfer, and I was very against taking a gap year. And then I kind of like stumbled upon EF, and I was like, oh, like maybe, this would be, good for me. And then as I started researching more into it, I realized it was a lot of people coming right out of high school, which is obviously like perfectly fine. But I was a little bit nervous just about being a little bit older because I turned 21 right before the trip. So that was definitely nerve wracking. And then I ended up clicking with people as soon as I got there that were the same age as me. And that was really nice and comforting. But the decision to come on a gap year was not easy. And I know that a lot of people are probably going through that right now. And it was like kind of taking a risk for me because this is like, it wasn't something I usually do stuff like this, obviously. And so it was a huge risk in the dark. And I just kind of like, went for it. And I'm so thankful every day that I left my old school and kind of came on this trip because it's honestly the best thing I've ever done. And I think I've made some of my absolute best friends from this trip.
And for me, I've like always really wanted to take a gap year because like even when I was in 8th grade, I wanted to travel and I just didn't want my worldview to just be like in Georgia. So I always knew I just wanted to be like out in the world, like exploring different cultures because I was always so fascinated by the world in general. And I also just have a fear of like regret and like getting to the end of college or starting my job that I'm supposed to major in and like not liking it because I'm like, if I'm going to pay so much money to go to college and do a degree, I want it to be something that I love and that I'm passionate about. And I don't want to start from square one again because I feel like in society that happens so much where people, they like, I mean, how are we supposed to know what we want to do right after high school? And all we're focused on is school, school, school. No one, we don't have a time to like figure out what we want to do, what we're passionate about. Like we don't even know ourselves when we're 18. And so I just knew I really wanted to figure out what I'm passionate about, what I love, and just what I want to do after college and like really make the most of college, if that makes sense. So yeah, and best decision ever. And oh, another thing is I'm one of 5 kids. And so I'm always with people all the time before my gap year, always with my friends. And so I was never alone really. And I eventually like learned to be so independent, love my alone time. And like, it's been the most like powerful thing for me because I'm able to like sit with myself and be like joyful alone. And I feel like taking a gap year, it's the perfect time to do that. Like throw yourself out there with people you never met in a different culture, a different country. And yeah, you'll learn so much and grow so much.
Awesome. Thank you, Mary. Great response. All right. So Jill and Juan, I think we want to hear the other side of the coin here. So from your perspective, I think it would be really helpful to hear how did gap year get on Camille and Jared's radar? What was that process, that decision-making process like as you were going through that as a family to decide if that was a good fit? And then what ended up ultimately making you feel confident that that was a good step? So Jill, would you mind maybe starting off for us?
Sure. So Jared had had a taste of travel. He had done teen tours in the past, so he knew that he enjoyed traveling and was very eager to do more of it. But during his, I guess, last year of high school, high school's gotten very rigorous for kids, right? They work really hard. They have to have all these community service hours. They have to have, how many AP courses. And I think the kids get very burnt out. And so when Jared approached my husband and I and said, I really don't want to wait till after college to travel. I want to go and I want to see the world before I do another 4 years of hard work and schoolwork. And so when we discussed it, the one thing that was important for my husband and I, well, not the one thing, but I wanted it to have some sort of academic component to it. It was really important. I was concerned that if he was just having a great time and didn't have to be anywhere specific and do anything, there was no educational component, I was really concerned he wouldn't want to go back to school. So we went through the process of applying to colleges, and he was accepted to BU. Boston University, and he deferred. And we found EF through my husband. He had spoken to somebody. We'd been searching for gap year programs. We had been researching a whole bunch of different programs, and we found this through someone my husband knows. And we went and visited. We saw you came to Boston. We were in Boston looking at schools, and we called up and made an appointment. And in speaking, I don't know, was it Ryan that met us? I don't even remember who it was that met us.
I was
But
there.
you
I was
were
one of,
there.
I was part of the crew. Yep.
Okay, so there were two of you that came down and
Yep.
met us. And after speaking to the two of you, we all were incredibly excited about this opportunity for Jared. So it really convinced us. It was speaking to you one-on-one, you taking the time with us. And after we left that meeting with you guys, we were decided that he was going to go ahead and do this.
And Jill, I think for context, recall, maybe you can correct me if I'm wrong. I believe that was the spring of Jared's junior year. So you were starting to think about options at that stage.
Correct.
Does that sound correct?
Yes. Yeah, that is correct.
Okay, awesome. I think I want to call that out because I know timing is always a question. And Juan, you can offer the flip side of the timing piece from the planning process. So what was it like for you and your family deciding if gap year was the right option for Camille?
So ours is somewhat of an interesting process. So Camille had applied to many, many colleges. Because of COVID, the application process was very challenging. She got into many colleges, did not get into many other ones where she really wanted to go. She got admitted to one particular college that she was very excited about. However, and this again goes back to last at the end of her a year ago, right after she was right before she graduated from high school. She was not, even though she was excited about where she was going to go, she wasn't 100% sold on it. So if we go back a year, now it's May, and basically we had already paid the deposit, had already done everything for her to go to college. And she comes to us and says, Mom and Dad, I'm really not sold on going to that school. I really wanted to go somewhere else. Any chance that I may be able to do something different? We also did not want her to just waste a year or give her money and say, yeah, here, go travel. In essence, go do your own gap year, because we wanted it to be educational. We wanted it to be where it was informative, where she was with a group of people that cared and with an organization that we felt safe with. So we told her, go do your homework and come back with options. She goes, would a gap year be an option? And we said, well, why don't you go do your homework, come back and do in essence, a presentation to us. She came back, she went on the internet, did all the research herself. And in fact, she contacted you guys, and by the time she contacted you guys, it was already June or July, if I remember right. We were running into a time constraint because you guys had already pretty much planned everything. So ours was a very limited time for her to do everything that she needed to, and for us to do everything that she needed to. You guys went out of your way to make the process very simple. Interviewed her, found her to be acceptable candidate to become a part of the gap year program. And we liked that process because it meant that, you care about who belongs in the program. You just won't take anyone. You'll want to make sure that it's a fit, that they fit into the program along with the rest of the kids that are already a part of the program as well. So it was a last minute decision, which worked out unbelievable. We would do it all over again. And again, to your point, it definitely was the complete opposite of most. We ended up somewhat hurrying the process, but at the same time with a lot of information on it. And you guys answered all our questions. And in fact, we talked to several parents who had done this before, who were very thrilled about the process. And in fact, I would recommend, and I open our phone to whoever wants to call us and talk to us individually. Perhaps if they feel that this may be something that they would prefer to talk to us one-on-one as opposed to in a group environment. So whoever's listening is welcome to give us a call. We'll tell you the truth. We have nothing to hide. We're not getting paid by anyone. So in regards to that, maybe we should. I'm joking. We highly, highly recommend it.
Awesome. That's great feedback, Juan. I think you just hit on a few points that I just want to reiterate so that everything is clear for folks here. It's that as prospective students go through the process, they'll end up speaking with a few people on our staff. We want to make sure that we get some different perspectives and really just understand who the student is, what's important to them, making sure that we're setting them up for success. And then I know we had some questions about how does this tie into the college process? And I think what Jill and Juan just shared really can encapsulate the two ends of the spectrum. You know, we have some students that will get into their school of choice, they'll accept, they'll defer from that school, and then they'll join us on a gap year. And then we have other students like Camille that maybe are using their gap year to apply to schools, maybe reapply to schools and add on that gap experience as a way to be able to feel more confident in which school they're going. So we've seen both of those paths can work really well. It just depends on the student. So thank you
And by
both
the
for
way,
sharing
as
that.
it relates to Camille, she did exactly what you just stated. She reapplied everywhere where she had not been accepted to, and in fact was admitted to every school that she applied to, where the year before she had been declined. And the reality is that the only difference, her grades didn't change. She had an incredible resume and should have gotten in everywhere. But the gap year program, I believe, enhanced her resume. And because of that, she was admitted to every school that she applied to in this process.
I also just want to add that during the program, many of Jared's friends were applying during the program, right? So if you don't know where you want to go, you haven't been accepted to a school, there's no need, you don't need to worry about that. You will be, your child will be supported during the program to go through the application process or whatever process. I mean, you know, a lot of the kids did not know where they were going and were just going through the process while even on the program. So just wanted to throw that in case that was a concern for anybody.
And
Thank you,
another
Jill.
thing that I want to add, like I am from Georgia and then I deferred to UGA, but some of my friends, like I didn't even really think about not deferring, but they didn't apply beforehand and they're like going to school in Madrid and all these really cool places in Europe. And the cost of education is a lot cheaper there too. And like I'm even considering doing that or maybe even transferring because I didn't even realize that was a possibility. And so the possibilities really are endless, not to be cheesy, but yeah.
When I was in Spain, I applied to school in Madrid, and that's like one of my options considering now, like you just said. And that's like a bunch of people on my trip did the same thing.
I think that just the idea of opening up possibilities is the whole idea of doing something like this is these students are stepping outside of their comfort zone that is super different and a lot of times against that traditional academic norm. And it's not always students between high school and college. I know for Missy, she already did 2 years of high school. And I think she can touch on that spring semester as well as like some of those students who are in a very different place, who were at the wrong school in the wrong major, or even students who had a set plan, kind of like Mary being like, you know what, I didn't realize this was an option until I got exposure to it. For you guys, when you were traveling, what is like the biggest piece of like culture shock, or what was one thing when you were traveling, you're like, I just like did not realize that this is how life operated outside of like my bubble that I've been used to?
I can start with this one. When I was in Costa Rica, that was the place I went first. And I was just shocked at the amount of like, they are just so present all the time. And it is just a whole different way of looking at life. And their number one source of the economy is tourism. So they love tourists and they love like, we went to a lot of small like family owned businesses and they loved taking us in and they were like care for us like they were own, like we were their own. And I just got such a good feeling and like community from everywhere we went in Costa Rica. And it was just, they had such different values. And there was something about being there that made you feel like so present. And it kind of made you like rethink the way our values are and like just all of that. And it really just it opened my eyes and changed my perspective.
I think Mary had a little bit of that as well. Is I was with her at the beginning of Dominican Republic. And Mary, I don't know if you want to share some of that story, but not having your phone for part of it. You kind of went through something super similar, even though you guys were on totally different programs.
Oh yes, of course. So it was the first week of Barcelona, so only my third week total, and I wasn't being responsible enough, and my phone got stolen. I was me just being dumb and I had it in my back pocket. Anyway, it turned out to be the biggest blessing of my life. My mom was like low-key really scared for me. I even traveled to Malaga, Spain without a phone. I had my little paper map. And it was funny because in the airport in Malaga, when I was going to take the bus to go to the city, there was this man next to me, and he was a little bit he was older, and he also had his paper map, and I was like, oh my gosh. But it was funny because it really did allow me to be a lot more present and not like, and also just like be, like I said before, like be able to be with myself. I wasn't always calling my family and friends like throughout the day. It was just me and myself and my friends in the gap year, and I would just explore the city of Barcelona, either on my own or just with my friends. And I've really just like, I actually really learned to appreciate nature so much more too. And I just found joy like in the little things, just because I wasn't constantly like stimulated by my phone. And I just found, and I talked to all the strangers. Oh, well, directions was a little bit of a challenge, but it was also a big blessing because I would go to like a restaurant and then ask for directions from someone. And then I would end up like conversing with them and how like then having a new relationship. And then my host mom in Spain and I, like, we just got so close, and I struggled a lot with Spanish, but she didn't speak any English, and so she helped me so much with my Spanish. We still talk to this day, and she was so sweet. She like, I'm not kidding, I literally called her my mom when I was there. But I will say, along with what Missy was saying with being present, also like just like in addition to that would just be people like prioritize their relationships instead of work. Like in the US, it's a lot of like the work hustle. People are really stressed, like depression rates are really high, and there's just so much to learn from places like the Dominican Republic, for example. And it was so sweet. I was cooking, we were cooking at this house in the Dominican Republic, and I got really close with the lady who was organizing it all and her son, because we were doing the dishes together. Anyway, we were just talking for a while, and then they invited me that night to go play Uno with them. And so that night, like I went around like maybe like 8 p.m. or something, and I was there until 11:30 playing Uno. No one was on their phones once. We were just talking and laughing. Everything was so funny to them, like every little thing in Uno. I mean, honestly, like I've been trying to get my family together to do that. And then last thing, sorry, in Europe, everyone is at dinner time, like they like talk for so long at meals. And in the US, it's like really quick. People are on their phones. It's crazy. And here, like, it was just so nice being able to relax and enjoy conversations with people. And it was just made me really optimistic to see that as a priority, like your relationships first instead of work. So
Uno at the Goggins next. Missy, do you have any experiences that you wanted to share?
I will say, like what you just said about the dinner thing, that is so true, because every night we went out to dinner and we would just sit in the streets of Malaga and we would sit there for hours. And it's also like the waitresses aren't getting paid by table, so you can sit there forever. But it really is like, it's about sitting and enjoying your meal with your company and enjoying your company. And I mean, we drank so much sangria. We did a whole sangria tour of Malaga, but it really is just about your company, and about the people you're with. And I thought that was like, you don't get that here really. Like Mary said, everything is so rushed. And it was just a really cool experience. And another place we went in Costa Rica, we didn't have any service. And that was like the biggest blessing, because we spent all the nights like sitting on the dock and talking. And we were like in the middle of nowhere, like in nature. And we were surrounded by like the water and the stars. And we became so close that week because we didn't have any contact with the outside world. And it was the biggest blessing.
That's great. Let's actually just run with the actual experience for a second here. So maybe we can do this. I think Mary and Missy, we'll stay with both of you while you're sharing right now. Could you just remind, and Mary, maybe we can start with you. Can you remind everyone what your program was? So the modules that you did, and then because obviously there's a lot of places that you went to, maybe you could talk a little bit about, since you mentioned service, maybe you could give us a highlight from either your language module or internship module, just to help people get a sense of what that's like.
yes, of course. So I did language in Barcelona, and my host, I stayed with the host mom, and it was just her and her husband and me. And so I kind of I just was able to develop really close relationships with them. And then my service was in the Dominican Republic, and we did marine life conservation. Like I said, I worked with manatees. We did lots of construction with like a school and building a sustainable garden for them. And then the internship, I actually had 2 internships, but the first one I worked with the social media marketing company. And then the second one, I was actually working with my brother because he was also in the program. And we were reaching out to different, it was like a company that was helping potential employers, if that makes sense. And so we were just making like different lists that they would reach out to. Basically, it's kind of confusing. We were just basically doing lots of like maintenance work and helping them do an email list and just reaching out to different companies for them. But I guess the highlight for the internship would definitely just be Sevilla in general, because it's a lot more independence with that. And so like on the weekend, there would be free like you could travel on the weekends. And then the internship was about like 3 to 4 hours per day. And so then at nighttime, me and my friends would just walk around Sevilla, explore the different restaurants. It's just a lot more like independence and a lot more like self-growth, because you learn how to like live on your own. And for me, that was like a really big deal. Obviously, living with my family of 7 back at home, like it was just a big step, just being on my own, independent. But it was amazing. I had a roommate. Her name was Jillian. Absolutely incredible. Yeah, and I also just gained, it was like a lot of self-confidence too, like knowing that like I'm capable of doing this, if that makes sense. Because I feel like at least for me, before I started the gap year, I was like, am I gonna be able to like do this? Am I like gonna just come home? Like it's just scary, and just being alone in Spain, and also like I'm not fluent in Spanish, like definitely working on it. So the language barrier was a struggle, but and so it's really intimidating, but like just getting to the end of it and knowing like I did that, you know what I mean? I did an internship and I lived alone and with someone that I wasn't that close with, and also it's kind of just a fun fact. I'm now dating someone from Switzerland that I met in Sevilla. So that's fun. And I just visited his family for 2 weeks in Switzerland. They all speak Swiss German, so not much English, but it's really fun. Anyway, that's just, and then language. Oh, I love the language school because I like definitely struggle with test taking in high school. And I loved it because it was just like the professors and the teachers are so invested in you. And like, it's just a conversation constantly. And it's so fun. You learn about the world. You just learn so much, but through Spanish, you're not just sitting there like grammar notes. It's all just conversation, talking. And then there's also international students in the school. So you get it. Like I have friends all over, like Germany, Switzerland, England. There's like all over in my class. And it was just so awesome. Like it's the first experience I had with being friends with people internationally. And I feel like I learned more in that Spanish class just for 6 weeks than I did maybe like 3 years. I'm not even kidding, of Spanish. Yeah, amazing. Professor's awesome. And on Fridays we did dance parties in the mornings. It was just really positive energy. Highly recommend the Barcelona school.
Makes a big difference to be there, right? And actually using it in a place that speaks Spanish, right?
Oh yes, totally. I got some better.
I'm sorry, Mary. I wanted to flip it over to Missy real quick, just to give us, because I know some folks tonight were asking, can you do a year? Can you do a semester? So can you give us, what was your semester? And then maybe you just pick out a highlight, whether it was travel or service, internship, anything that you want to point to as a highlight.
Yeah, so I did the semester. So I did service in Costa Rica, and then I did an internship in Malaga, Spain. And I entered for a medical VR company, which I literally knew nothing about. But I learned on the job, and I edited like their website and found them leads, like literally everything. And I learned so much. And the last day I actually had a meeting with the CEO, and like we talked about everything that I did. And he like personally thanked me, which was super cool. And how many times can you say that you were like that you worked for a company in Spain and met with their CEO, all that stuff. And then, but I think that my highlights would definitely be, like Mary said, the independence of living in Spain and living in a city was awesome. My hours were a little bit longer. So I worked from 8:30 to 5:30 every day. But then after, like we would go and we would get drinks and we would just like walk the streets of Malaga and it was so independent. Like I could just go to the grocery store and like cook my food, because I was also virtual, which was a little bit interesting, but I went to a coffee shop every day, became friends with the people there, became friends with the locals. And that's really an experience you can't get anywhere else. So I think that that was my biggest highlight. And in Costa Rica, it was definitely meeting the local people, and kind of just like seeing our impact firsthand was life changing.
Great answer, Missy. That's awesome. Thank you. All right. So I know we've had a few questions from some parents this evening. So Juan and Jill, I think we could use your opinion on this. So can you speak to what was it like while your student was away? I think just to be apart for a long time, we know there's obviously an emotional component to that, but then logistically, how were you able to stay in touch, and what sort of support do you think that they needed to be successful, whether that was, preparing them before they went abroad or checking in with them while they were there or their friends on program? But what sort of support did they need, and what was the best way to be able to stay in touch with them? Maybe Juan, could you help us with that first?
Absolutely. So the one thing that I really appreciated from the gap year when we decided to do it is you guys offered a phone plan for Camille to use where we could text, call, Zoom, do anything we wanted to at a fixed price. We didn't have to worry about international charges, didn't have to worry about maybe only calling once a day, once a week, once a month, whatever. So we felt that we had access to her 24/7. In addition to that, we knew that you guys were there should the need arise. And in fact, it did once. The need, one of the benefits of the gap year that we found, or that she found, that she was able to travel during the weekends. She was able to go wherever she wanted to. And they usually did it as a group. Well, during one of those travels, she went to Barcelona, and on the way back to Paris from Barcelona, she left her iPad at the checkpoint going through security because she was in a hurry. And she called EF, and EF was able to retrieve her iPad from the security, not TSA, but their security. And in fact, we're able to ship it to her back in Paris. So we felt that you guys were there at any time, and she felt safe and supported 24/7.
Thank you, Juan. Yeah, and for us, safety is incredibly important. So we need to have measures in place to make sure that everyone is following. We call them the rules of the road that we review with all students before they go on program. So, Jill, maybe you could offer your perspective of, how were you able to stay in touch with Jared, and what sort of support did he need, or did you work with him on program, pre-program?
So for Jared, we just added an international, plan onto his cell phone so that we could contact him whenever. During the immersion pieces where Jared originally met up in Boston with everybody, and they did the orientation in Boston, then they did the 2 weeks of European immersion, we barely heard from him. We didn't know what was going on, only because he didn't have any time. And I found the same thing through the immersion in Ecuador and the Galapagos. There's no time to call, and we got texts that he was okay, things were fine, he was having a great time. We were speaking to him regularly when he was in Nice, not so much in Costa Rica. Very bad service in Costa Rica. We didn't hear from him a lot of that time. And same with Ecuador and the Galapagos. And then once in Sevilla, we spoke to him on a regular basis. What kind of support did he need? Really just for us to listen. If there was, he had a very good experience. I know other people, Mary already mentioned she lost her cell phone, and I know quite a few other people have lost stuff or things were stolen. I think one of Jared's friends, Faris, maybe got something stolen or lost, and he dealt with it. The kids dealt with the adversity of it, which is a great, great way to learn how to deal, how to cope in a foreign country. So he didn't really need a whole ton of support. He did, of course, have questions about flights because he was traveling all over the place, visiting people in all different countries on the weekends. They were busy. So, should he do this? Should he do that? That was really, and as far emotionally, he's pretty independent. He did have a fall in the Galapagos when he arrived, and he wasn't injured, but he was hurt and he was very stressed out. So, just to listen to them and just, let them know that it's going to be okay. And if they have any questions, you're home, you're calm, you can help them through anything. But he didn't need a whole lot of real support necessarily.
I think all four of you touched on a similar theme, is like this like road to independence. And I know for a lot of what I do day to day is chatting with students about their goals. And most students come to us being like, I kind of want to work on like my self-confidence, working on being that like independent young adult. And that can be really hard and really challenging when you're traveling the world. And sometimes the best moments looking back are some of those most challenging. But I'd love to hear both from students and parents, like, what was kind of one of those defining moments for you on program that you're like, this is really hard, but I know I can do this? Or as a parent, is you're like, this is such a great learning opportunity of them stepping into problem solving and navigating that new sense of adulthood, really?
I can start with this one. This isn't a personal story, but my friend actually lost his two front teeth in Costa Rica. And that was like definitely, it was a big, like he had to be like rushed to the ER, and they basically told him like, there's nothing we can do for you. And our tour guide in Costa Rica was amazing, unbelievable. And within 3 hours, he had him set up in like all these appointments to get new teeth, and then within a week he had new teeth, and it was like, wow, like that was insane. And so EF is like, they know what they're doing, and for him too, like he had to like kind of deal with the fact that like, okay, my teeth are gone, like I'm in a foreign country by myself, like what now? And EF like really helped him, and he figured it out like right like that. And that was one of those moments where like, okay, like we're adults, we can do this.
For me, it's a little different, but so the Leadership Academy at the very end is like all about reflecting on your time. How are you going to like apply everything you've learned? What are you going to do about, college? What are the next steps? And they give you a lot. I love it because they give you so much free time to just like reflect and think about it. Obviously, it's in a beautiful place as well. That was awesome. But I remember I was just like reflecting and thinking, and I was like, I don't know. I was like, I still, my interests are all over the place. I don't know what I want to do. Like, at first I was like, why did I take this gap year? Like, blah, blah, blah. And I was like thinking more and more, and I had this like beautiful realization that like, like society will tell you like, oh, you have to figure out what you want to do. You have to have one thing. You have to have your set of identities. Like, who are you? All this stuff figured out. And like, what I realized like throughout the gap year is that like, it's so not true. And I realized that like, oh, I have like 5-6 set of interests, and I just can do all of those things in my life. I can focus on like, I began to love sustainability, environmental science, and the Dominican Republic. I want to minor in Spanish. And then I also realized I love psychology. I also am interested in entrepreneurship and business. And I was like, I can't just choose one. And it's like so beautiful. Just thanks to EF and getting to experience those things and explore my interests, that like I can do all those throughout my life. I don't have to just choose one little thing, And so I thought that was like a really beautiful moment for me. And just with the help of EF and like the reflection questions they had at the like Leadership Academy, and then even just hearing from the alumni there, I just really realized that like my purpose, there's not one certain purpose that I'll have, lots of things, and I'm not just one set of identity. Like there's so many different things I'll be interested in along the way, so many different relationships. So yeah, just like EF does a really, really good job with helping you reflect on your time and how to apply it and feel good coming home. So yeah.
Well, from our end of it, I think that the biggest thing that we take away from the gap year experience is the growth that Camille developed, the fact that she had to figure everything out on her own, in essence. And even though you guys were there and we were communicating, somewhat often, it was still her decisions. It was still her figuring out what to do. If she found a problem, she had to solve it. If she had an issue with her employer at the end in the internship, she had to solve it. and she had to deal with all of the issues on her own. If she wanted to eat, she had to go to the grocery store. And so it made her grow quite a bit. And then at the same time, it also allowed her to be able to reapply everywhere else and be able to then say, okay, this is where I want to go to school. Maybe I don't know what I want to become yet. And to Mary's point, I think it's, you don't necessarily have to know what you're going to do when you end the gap year or even when you end high school, but you certainly have a better understanding of how to deal with issues and how to adversity and both happiness and sadness on both ends of it. So it's a program that I highly recommend, and I think it's worth every penny that we invested in it, and would do it all over again. And in fact, I want to do one.
So what could I add to that? I want to say it was interesting. We had made a deal with Jared when we decided on this gap year program that we would pay for this gap year program, but he would have to cover all the spending money. We would not be giving him any money to spend the whole trip. He was going to have to do it. So Jared worked 2 jobs after school, senior year, weekends. Really wanted this. He worked 2 jobs over the summer, saved up a lot of money. He did really well. He worked hard. He wanted this so badly. And then he had to work through budgeting his money through all the different legs of the trip. Just, for me, watching him want something so badly, to want to go on this program, to work so hard to get it, to support himself on it, to meet the people he met, and all the travel, it wasn't easy. The pace on some of these legs was grueling, right? You were constantly going and going, long flights, right? And dealing with some of the adversity, working for somebody in an internship and maybe not agreeing with them, having to go to school or going to class, living in a location where maybe you didn't speak the language, working, living in a host family home, dealing with the different dynamics of the kids and the roommates, right? Because everybody's from a different background on the trip. And I think there was a tremendous amount of growth, and the friends that he made, they share a special connection, right, with these people, because now you've lived with them and you share that connection. So I think it's been great to watch him grow, and I think he's just had an experience to, he knows what an opportunity this was for him to be able to do something like this. So
the friendships made and the people you meet make a huge difference. I'm actually a previous EF traveler myself. I traveled with another branch when I was in college, way before gap year existed. And I've gone to some of their weddings. I've done weekend trips, done more international travel with them. So it definitely is lifelong. And for all of you guys here, I would love Juan and Jill to give other parents a piece of advice for their students who are considering this or who are preparing for program departure, or for Mary and Missy, for those students who have been in your shoes before, that end of your semester, getting ready for that next chapter. If the 4 of you could leave one piece of advice for both students and parents, what would it be?
Don't worry. These kids are well supported. They're going because they want to go. They want the experience of it. And don't worry. Don't worry, right? It all went very well. And if your kid's willing to take the leap, let them do it, and follow the journey. That would be my biggest piece of advice.
Goosebumps, Jill. Now I'm going to sign up for a gap year. Sorry, gap year team. Catch you next year.
Mine would definitely be if your heart is feeling like you want to do this, but you're in the back of your mind has all these different questions, you're going to have people telling you, oh, well, you're going to be a year behind. You're going to miss out the college experience. First of all, no, I'm going to be a year. I'll still be in college for a year. You're going to be in your real world. I'll also be having fun. But just do it. I know you're going to have so many doubts. You're going to have oh my gosh, how am I going to do this? Am I going to be okay? Am I going to be anxious? Am I going to miss home? Am I going to meet friends? But you're going, it's going to be fine. And you're going to grow so much. And it really, I'm not kidding. Before, I don't know if y'all experienced this, and senior year, lots of stress, burnout. lots of sadness for me personally. And like my mom, everyone's like, Mary, you're so happy now. You're so joyful. You have like, you know yourself, you know exactly what you do. You have all this like goals for the future. Like I didn't, like, yeah, I used to sleep all the time, be sad and just like mope around. And this gap year really is like awoken like a whole new person to me. Like that's so cringy, but it really is so true. So like I would say you can literally talk to me. I'll talk to you for hours about it. Like I put my Instagram in there. No, seriously. Like I'm so a proponent for everyone to take a gap year. So yeah, just please just trust me on it. You will not regret it.
I couldn't agree more with anything Mary said. It was like the best thing ever. And I'm so glad I took a risk and wasn't listening to anyone saying that I was going to be behind in college or that I was like afraid to leave. And like, I'm so glad even with like the age difference that I went. And all I have to say is go with an open mind, like have, as you know, what she said, so cringy, but high expectations or low expectations, high hopes. Don't go in with any expectation, just go in with an open mind. And you'll have the most amazing time. Like Mary was saying, just go for it. Like you will not regret it. I promise you.
Mine is simple. I would say trust your kids. You've done a great job up to now. Trust them. Trust EF. They definitely are there for you if you need them. And trust that the experience is going to be well worth it, as you've heard from both of them and how much they've grown. I think that's the easiest way to summarize for anybody that has any kind of issues is trust, again, your kids, gap year program, and the fact that they're going to grow and they're going to be so much better people at the end of the program.
Amazing, Juan. And I need to thank the four of you so much for being here, for giving us your time. I mentioned this to you all before, but we get some really, really positive feedback from our students and our families that are able to attend sessions like this. And your feedback, your stories tonight is amazing. And thank you for being open and honest and candid. So for Mary and Missy, we're hopeful that you continue to keep an eye on the EF Gap Year alumni emails and more events and opportunities that you'll have to stay connected. The work that you're doing to help other students is immense. And I think it really gives them the confidence to be able to step forward. And then Jill and Juan, we hope to be able to have you stay connected with us. And we really, really appreciate your time, your stories this evening. Lauren, you're the best. You did a great job this evening. And I want to thank everybody that attended. We had an awesome crew you guys saw from all over the country. Hopefully everybody's excited for Gap Year. And what you can expect leaving today is that our Gap Year team, your Gap Year consultant, which hopefully you've already connected with. If you haven't, they'll reach out and introduce themselves tomorrow and offer the chance to be able to continue the conversation and be able to fill in the gaps. We know there's a lot of information, hard to cover it all tonight, but hopefully these are some good, helpful stories to give you a lay of the land and if this might be something that's a good fit for you. So with that, we're going to wrap up. We're going to close out tonight, give everybody the rest of their evening back. We hope to see all of you soon. And we thank our panelists so much. You guys are awesome. Be well, everybody. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you so
Yeah,
much.
you got it. Thank you. Thank you all.